Welcome. I am so excited to be here with Emily today to talk to you about her journey out of the classroom and how she landed two job offers. Hey, Emily, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Cindy. How are you?
I am so happy to talk to you today. So let's tell everybody first, what was your job prior to leaving the classroom?
So, I was a high school chemistry teacher. I had worked in a couple different school districts teaching a variety of different levels.
And what made you decide to leave teaching?
It was a hard
Big sigh.
decision. I'm sorry.
Big sigh.
Yeah. I, I mean, I love working with students and I love learning. However, I found that the stress and the drain that it was putting on me wasn't healthy for me. Being having to be on all the time and having to be so much to these kids and holding yourself in this position where you're not only teaching them but you're helping them with things in their life, which is so important, but it's something that you can take home with you sometimes, and it's a lot of pressure to be so much for a kid. So I decided to leave the classroom because I wanted to find a role where I could still support people in their education, but have sort of more of a targeted role and more of a targeted impact on that student's education.
Admirable, very nice. So what happened? What was the journey like? Was it easy? What was it like to try to leave the classroom?
It was not easy. I just want to be straightforward with that. I actually had gotten laid off from a teaching job of 3 years, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to give it one more year. And if I still want to leave, then I'll leave. But I'm really gonna, give it my all, give it as much as I can before I make this decision. So I had been considering it for a while. Been considering it at the end of the 2023 school year, decided to do one more school year. During that 23 to 24 school year, I decided that was the decision I wanted to make, that I wanted to leave the classroom. I left the classroom with the intention of going into higher education. Um, so June of 24, I stopped teaching and was applying to a whole bunch of jobs and was having a really hard time being able to actually land a job, which is why I reached out to Cindy.
So what changed? What changed when we started working together? And by the way, for
I,
anyone who's watching this, because we don't know when they're watching, we are at the very beginning of 2025.
yes, yes, it is March 1st currently. Um, and what changed? My resume, I could tell you that much. Uh, my resume and cover letter, so if we're talking about just like what's on paper, definitely changed. I started marketing myself differently. Obviously the format of my resume was different, but also how I was talking about what I had accomplished was different. I also strayed away from the typical to whom it may concern. I am pleased to apply to this. Yeah. So I definitely got more adventurous in my cover letters and sort of put more feeling into them. And then outside of sort of my application materials, Cindy really helped me with my interview skills. For example, I used to always look up on a on a poetry. I don't know why. I'd like roll my eyes when I'm thinking, and like I'm sure I'm like you're gonna see me do it in this, I'm sure, but I do it a lot less now. I'm like, look at the camera. That's what Cindy says. Um, but I think that I just did it. Being able to do interview practice with her was really, really valuable for me because she taught me how to sort of frame my experiences and my answers in a way that was most appropriate for each and every role that I was applying to, rather than just having one answer for a question, like, oh, tell me why you left the classroom. Um, Catering that answer to the role that I was applying to.
So I know that you always planned on going to higher education, but it wasn't a straight line.
No, it
What did that
wasn't.
journey look like?
So like I said, I left the classroom in June. I was looking for a job all summer, couldn't find one. Started working with Cindy, what, in like September, I think, like very beginning of September, maybe end of August, something like that. Um, and I actually got a job offer while working with Cindy to be a program manager at an eating disorder treatment center. which I accepted because I was unemployed. And I worked at that role for about 3 months. I learned a lot of great things about management, and I worked with a really, really wonderful team with something that I'm passionate about. But ultimately, this isn't where I pictured myself and isn't where I want to be in the long term because, like I said, my intention when I left the classroom was to go into higher education. Um, Higher education moves really, really slowly with applications. So I actually had applied to a job on October 9th before I even started my
It's
current
like in the middle of us
role.
working yeah, it was in the middle
Yes,
of us
yes,
working
like
together. Yeah.
it was an application I worked on while I was like actively seeing Cindy what every other week. Um and I submitted it on October 9th, didn't hear anything back until I don't know, like December when I was already working my program manager job and I'm like this is crazy. Um and I was like, you know what, this is really where I want to be. I'm going to go through with these interviews, and I got the job, which is so mind blowing to me, and I'm so thrilled to say that I'm finally being able to work in higher education, just with a little sort of detour along the way.
So, and that job is starting really soon. What is your title going to be at that job?
I'm going to be an academic and career advisor, which is like kind of ironic because like I've worked with you and you're like obviously like a career coach, career specialist. And I'm really excited for the role because it's such like a holistic approach of I'm not just helping people pick their classes, I'm helping people sort of pick their path and pick their journey. And maybe that involves trying out some classes, seeing are we actually interested in this thing, but also not only thinking about just the classes, but where those classes will eventually bring them in their career.
I'm so happy for you. I'm
Me
so
too.
excited because this is absolutely positively what you wanted to do. What were the feelings? I know there were some mixed feelings about the thought of should I accept a job that wasn't exactly the job I wanted and can I leave that job? And that's a hard thought process for individuals. So talk about that.
I absolutely hated the idea of taking one job for a little bit while you look for another one. I That was just like so disgusting to me because I had been looking for a job for so long. So the thought of having to look for a job again was like absolutely just vile to me, like not what I wanted to do at all. Um, but I ended up not actually having to look for another job because, like I said, I had already applied for that job before I started the program manager job. But I did have to interview still, obviously, and like go through that process again, which we all know it's like emotionally exhausting and takes a lot of preparation. So I'm not going to minimize the work that goes into the interview process, of course. But at least I wasn't submitting applications. But yeah, I was so hesitant and so like oh, that sounds like take one job and wait for another. Like, oh, I don't want to go through this again. But you know what? I did it and you can too. This ends up happening to you. So, and I like ultimately the outcome is what I wanted and I wouldn't change a thing.
I'm so glad because the timing unfortunately doesn't always work out. I mean, you applied for the academic job way before the program manager job, and the
Hmm.
timing just doesn't work. And sometimes we need to do that, and sometimes the job is a stepping stone, and it could be a matter of months or it could be a year or something, but until you get to the job that you really want. It's not always a straight path when you're leaving the classroom.
Yeah.
So what would you say what were our sessions like?
I think you like to say like holding your hand and kicking you in the butt, and I definitely agree with that. I searching for a job and like, being unemployed is so hard, and the the effort that you're putting into job applications each day, it can get really tiring and really it's easy to lose motivation. And I do consider myself a very motivated person. I'm very self-driven, but it comes to a point when you're applying to 80 plus jobs where you just don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
um,
This is
so
hopeless. Why am I doing this?
yeah,
Right.
it's like I
Yeah.
want to do something else today. I don't want to apply for another job like that. Oh. So I think that one of the really great things about working with Cindy was having those meetings to look forward to and thinking, okay, I gotta tell her what I did. Like I have to apply to something. So I think that the accountability of like the pacing of my job applications was really, really helpful with her. And even like as I was doing my my applications. In our first session, we kind of like rewrote some resume bullet points, and I kind of like had her in my brain. I'm like, okay, like how would Cindy word this? Like, okay, I'm going to use numbers. I'm going to use examples. Um, so I definitely I'm not going to say that it made the application process easier because it's a hard process even when you're well equipped, but I will say that, I felt more empowered and well equipped when doing these applications.
Awesome, awesome. So, what is your advice for anybody that is looking for a job?
Be persistent. And if it's not working, like it wasn't working for me, reach out to someone like Cindy. I had followed Cindy on LinkedIn since like mid-school year. I forget exactly when, but sometime I remember that I saw your LinkedIn like at school, like when I was at lunch or something. And I did not reach out to her until like late August. And like, why did I wait? Like, had I not waited, my summer would have been a lot better because I wouldn't have just been submitting application, and not getting anything back. So, definitely, if it's not working, you need to do something different, right?
Absolutely.
And to find that something different, sometimes we need an outside perspective. So Cindy really provided me with that outside perspective of, okay, like what am I doing wrong? What can I change? Because like I'm an employable person. Like I have great skills, I have a strong work ethic, but I need to show people that because clearly these application materials aren't even getting me an interview. So what's going to change?
And you did have many interviews while we were working together.
Yeah.
So awesome. I am so happy for you. I am happy that you got not one, but two jobs, that you have, you gained great experience in your first position, and that now you're moving to what really is your dream job. Okay, which is the best thing that anybody can say about, leaving one field with all those feelings to be able to go to something that they really, really want.
Yeah, something that my passion is in. I care so much about education. And when I left the classroom, I didn't want to abandon education. Like, access to education and supporting students is so important to me. I just wanted to do it in a different capacity. And now I get to do that.
Well, I am so happy for you, and I'm so happy to have been able to empower you and support you and educate you along that journey.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
I wish you continued success.
Thank you. You as well. But you're doing pretty well for yourself. So you don't need my wishes.
I do well because my clients do well, and vice versa. I am here for them. It is an honor and a privilege every single day. Thank you.
Thank you.